All right, so welcome back to the Bullshit Podcast. Obviously, I'm CJ, and I'm here with Finn. Actually, we've known each other for a while, but we only really hung out for the first time at Call.
Yeah, we always kind of missed each other.
Yeah.
When it came to events, either I injured because I hurt my knee pretty badly and had to pretty much get forcibly retired from actually participating in LARP around about the time when you started the White Bulls at Swordcraft. So my retirement kind of happened when you started coming in to LARP and stuff. And yeah, so timelines never really met up.
You're not in the usual groups that I would hang out with, which, to be fair,
No.
I don't like to hang out with anyone when I go to LARP. I usually am by myself.
Yeah.
But we've never sort of been in warbands that sort of click together.
No,
so-
we weren't. I kind of try to put myself with people I already know really well.
Yeah.
So went from like different type of the same warbands between both Swordcraft and Exodus, and now that I'm starting to socialize and get to know people more, especially with the new LARP that I'm going to now, I met all them when I went to Swordcraft Bendigo, when I went to Voyage a few weeks ago. So that runs once a month out in the Northern Grampian area.
So what's that one called?
Yeah. That one's called Winter Haven. It's fairly small at the moment. And I met them all through being fans of the Witcher series and getting to know them all at Voyage and drinking with them at Voyage. And yeah. So that's once a month that I jump on a coach for 5 hours to go to.
Shit.
And
dedicated. From what I know, Winter Haven is a Diablo-based LARP, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Diablo 2 Resurrection.
So have you
themed.
actually been to games, or is it just sort of a hangout?
We're starting our own like in-person D&D. Like, we're LARPing the D&D game, because when I found out that it was all Diablo 2, I was only under the impression that there was only the video game aspect of Diablo 2, and I'm a huge Diablo fan. Played through 1, played through 2, absolutely adore 3. We don't talk about Immortals.
I'm a big Diablo fan as well, but I'm one of those people that skips everything that they say unless it's in a cinematic. I love the cinematics.
Yeah.
Diablo always nails their cinematics, but listening to people talk, I'm just shut up, let me go stab stuff. But
and then reading into the controversy around Diablo Immortal and everything, I'm sitting there going, that's actually a real kick in the teeth.
Yeah,
and that's going to hurt Blizzard and Activision even more.
Yeah, they've been
now
having
because
nothing but controversy, it seems like.
Yeah,
boycotting.
Like they've already taken such a hit to popularity and their fan base with the misconduct allegations that went up at the start of this year. Like Blizzard, as you were saying before about not paying attention to anything but the cinematics, Blizzard usually do hit it out of the park when it comes to the cinematics. I think the company that did it better for cinematics wise would be Square Enix, where they made movies using the cinematic software and everything that they were using for the Final Fantasy games.
Well, that's what they should have done for the World of Warcraft movie. Like, that movie was bollocks.
Yeah.
If they had done it all cinematic, I reckon they would have made so much more money on that.
It would have been a lot better than what it was.
Hell yeah.
I went opening night when Warcraft came out and left halfway through.
Yeah.
It was just that bad and just like, nah.
I love. I think his name's Travis Fimmel. I know him as Ragnar.
Yeah.
I would let
Yeah.
that man rest his nutsack on my forehead. He's so awesome, but in that movie, just I couldn't buy him.
Knowing that he's an Aussie and having gone drinking with him when he's come down to Melbourne for stuff.
Wow, that's awesome.
He's a really, really nice guy, and I would let him do unfathomable things to me.
Yeah.
He's just an absolute sweetheart.
All right. Well, we should probably go back to the theme of this episode. I don't even know if I mentioned it at the start. Is Pride Month. So obviously you fit into that community. I don't, as a dirty white cis straight man.
Yeah.
But all right. So what's your experience like? What are you coming in as?
I'm an out and proud trans man. Been on hormones for about 5 years now. Been in and out of the scene for a little bit over 10 years.
The scene as in
the LGBT QI plus family. There was questioning whether I was bi, whether I was bisexual, whether I was pansexual. Just like,
as in you were questioning, or others
yeah,
were questioning
I was questioning.
Okay.
And it was just like, I just like people. I don't care what gender they are. I just like people. Which falls, I think this is the correct terminology, but into like definitely the pansexual type of thing.
I think so. That's one of the only ones out of the dictionary that I know.
Yeah.
I'm not very well versed in all of the different identities and sexualities. That's why I really wanted to do this, because I don't have anyone that I like can talk to that is in that sort of situation. So I don't really have any friends going through it. Like, I've got people that I talk to, especially at Swordcraft. You get plenty of them, but I've never really had the conversation. I've got gay friends, and that's as far as I really get. So do you feel like coming into a LARP situation, people look at you different or treat you different?
Yeah, depending, and it all kind of depends on how, especially if you're in character building and character creations, how you're really wanting to outwardly express your gender identity. With all of the characters I've tried to create, I tried to make them as non-binary specific as possible, just so that there isn't that risk of like people being confused and going, like, you say you're masculine, like your character's masculine, but you're presenting feminine and stuff like that. So I've been trying to keep all of my character creation as non-binary on like the linear gender scale and the gender spectrum as possible, just so there isn't that barrier of possible confusion.
Do you feel like that means you're sort of tiptoeing around how other people will perceive you?
Yeah. For me, I feel like that's always going to happen. I'm always going to be tiptoeing around other people's perceptions of me, being that I have been in the LARP scene, especially in Melbourne, for roughly 12, 13 years. I started back at Swordcraft when it was only 3 or 4 warbands, way back when. And like I'm getting people now who are still accidentally using my previous name rather than my new name now. I'm just like, you've known me for like 12 years. Like you get a couple free passes, but like if it was someone new who actively went out, like found my previous name and was just like, oh, this is you, and like questions everything, just like, okay, little bit too far. That's not who I am. That's who I was. That like that person doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Sadly, you can't really escape those type of people sometimes, and especially when they start to they start to appear up during the Pride months.
Yeah, I feel like because it's such a focus, they feel like they have to be louder than the loudest voice in the room. Yeah, I understand that. So when it comes to you becoming who you really are, and you going into a world where you're pretending to be someone else, do you feel like you are still sort of avoiding who you are? Does that make it sort of awkward, or?
It can, especially with costuming. There is some silhouettes that I really like when it comes to like long flowing jackets, and it's kind of hard to try and retool those to be more masculine. So you kind of have to make a choice of, am I going to care if people notice that this is a traditionally feminine outfit on a masculine presenting character? And it's just gotten to the point now where I just don't care. I'm gonna wear what I wear because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
And like my whole thing is, if I'm comfortable and if I'm living my best life, that's definitely going to be my priority. And I've started to stop caring what people think about my gender expression, because it's none of their business.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's my call about what my characters look like, how my characters talk, how they present, how they interact with other characters in a LARP setting. As I said, you're always going to run into assholes who just don't fucking care, or who don't give a shit and just want to start shit. You want to play dirty, I'm not stooping to your level.
Yeah, well, I can't see anyone that would do that to you, because look, when we first started talking, and like I deliberately, especially at Swordcraft, I deliberately don't try and focus on genders or anything when I talk to people.
Yeah.
I try and get character names, because I know that it's a minefield out there. If you misstep in one way, someone might get upset, or they might be cool with it. But when I sort of picked up on the language you were using, I put it together, and I'm like, okay, so I asked you outright, and I'm like, how do you identify? And you were happy to tell me, which is good. But I think a lot of people are scared of that, so you're definitely going to have your assholes, but some people, I think...
There is always going to be a level of fear when it comes to offending another party.
Yeah.
That's always going to be a thing.
I think the internet is good and bad in that regard. So it helps you to understand other people's stories, but if you get yourself in that echo chamber where... I know plenty of people that are Christian conservative types that if you go on their YouTube, you will only see two genders, you'll only see your Jordan Petersons, Ben Shapiro's, and all that sort of stuff. I do like to hear all different sides and different stories. I'm a shit stirrer at nature, so I annoy people all the time. But in these sorts of situations, where like if I'm talking to you, I don't want to go out of my way to offend you. So you were really welcoming when it came to that. Like, I was nervous at the start, 100% I'll admit that, because it's something that I'm not used to. But it's good to have someone like you that is willing to talk about it and help educate people that aren't in that sort of situation. But when it comes to LARP, do you feel like you get a lot of situations where you will be nervous around other people and not know?
Yeah.
Or do you feel like you're more in tune to it?
Yeah, it also depends on if I know the person and how long I've known the person. Because if it's someone who I knew from way back when I LARPed, who may not know or may not realize that I've transitioned because we fell out of touch for so many years, I'll kind of be nervous, because especially if they're also hanging around and we're with a group of new people who only know me as Finn, and they accidentally drop my previous name, and it's like, oh, who's that? And it's like, oh, okay, this is going to have to be a discussion out of character now, and go from there. But in other words, it's basically I'm having to inwardly gauge how I'm going to approach things, and how, especially if it's a roleplay thing, how severe the roleplay is going to be will depend on how nervous I'm going to be. Especially if it's going to be a very physical roleplay.
Yeah.
Like I'm wrestling with someone and stuff like that, where
true, I wouldn't
actions can get physical and stuff.
Okay. That's a whole different dimension that I wouldn't even think about.
Yeah.
Like, obviously I don't want to get hit in my schnuts, but that's the extent of my worries when it comes to that. Like, I'm happy to get into physical fights and wrestle and all that sort of stuff because I've done mixed martial arts for X amount of years. So
I would get into the more physical type of role plays if it weren't for the fact that I sneeze and my body breaks at the moment. So
yeah, fair enough. One other thing that I was thinking of, obviously leading up to this podcast, is have you ever thought if a all trans warband would work? I don't know how many there are though. That could be a problem. Do you think that would work?
A queer, like a warband that consists, like, that envelops the entire LGBTQ
that makes more sense.
Plus warband, yes. An all trans warband, no. A lot of people aren't as open with and aren't as out as I am. And even then, like, because we're all not cookie cutter people who have the same mentality and like the same ideas and stuff. And I know this sounds shitty, but I don't think it'd work. We'd probably bicker too much.
Yeah.
And it'd depend on what the ratio between female to male transitioning and male to female transitioning would be, because there is that level of displacement with hormones.
Oh, that's a good point.
And it'll be like putting a dozen bulls into a china shop and hoping that nothing gets broken. But as I said, a warband that was completely like that kind of included the overarching LGBT spectrum instead of just being one segment of that spectrum, sense. So it's not exclusionary.
Yeah, that makes way more sense to me. The only hurdle that I could think of as an outsider was maybe then douchebags would target that group.
Yeah.
But if you were to say the whole sort of LGBTQ together, that would make more sense. Yeah. So that means, like, so when you say that you might bicker because the hormones and everything, do you feel like does it change your mood in a major way? Obviously, going on to testosterone.
Personally, yeah. I get my hormones every 3 months, every 12-ish weeks. And for like the following 3-4 weeks, I suffer from what I personally call the fight or fuck response, where it's just I either want to beat something up or I'm gonna have sex with it. I haven't decided. It could be both. But that's just my personal experience with me having testosterone, like me having my hormone treatments.
How do they work? Is it a tablet or injection?
I get a injection in my butt every 3 months, and it's a big fucking needle because the liquid it's in castor oil, so it's super thick, and they've got to go real slow because it's basically like pumping cement. And if you're not used to needles or you don't like needles, it can be incredibly frightening. But a few years ago when I was getting treated for allergies and stuff, I was getting stabbed in the arm every 2 weeks. So needles are fine.
Yeah.
Like, needles are nothing to me, but I have some friends, especially over in the United States, who are transitioning but elected to go for the alternate forms of getting that. There's the needle and a few creams and ointments that you can use. And they're just like, I can't do needles. Needles freak me out. And I'm just like, yep, cool. You do you, boo. I started out on the cream, which was daily. Did that for 2 years, but it's also when you put it on, you can't touch anyone really for 3-4 hours, and it just kind of, if you don't have the regimen of, okay, I need to do this at this time and really stick to that regime of doing it daily, I found that I was skipping days and even weeks without it because I just forget to do it. In the middle of uni, especially when you're doing classes, I probably would have been fine if I was holding down like a 9-to-5 job. But when you're doing uni classes where those classes aren't always at the same time every day, it gets, because you're having to either coming home late or you're leaving early, and unless you take it with you and you do it on your lunch break. I've found that just getting the 3 monthly jab is a lot easier because it's kind of like a set and forget. And depending on which form of HRT you take is dependent on how quick the hormone release is. So if you're doing something like the Testogel or the androgen creams and ointments, it's a small dose instantly. And because you're doing it every day, it slowly builds up. But with the Reandrin shot that I get, it's a massive dose once, and then it peters out slowly over those 12 weeks.
Okay.
And yeah, so it all depends on how you want to do it, because everyone's process with HRT is different. So I wouldn't know because I'm not male to female transitioning, and I have a feeling there is more options for male to female transitioning than there is female to male at the moment. But yeah, so it all depends on what the individual wants to do and how quick the individual wants to transition.
Is it hard to start? Like, is it something where you need to see psychologists?
Yeah.
5 doctors?
When I started, because I started through the Monash Gender Clinic down in Moorabbin, and it's like, yep, cool. We have like a 2.5 year waiting list. Like, oh, okay, I'll see how I go here. Got to 1.5 years and went, screw this. Let's go have a look at Northside. They had 6 months. But I was just like, I go to uni in Hawthorne. Equinox in Collingwood is just easier for me to get to. And they were just like, we have like an 8 months to a year waiting list. I'm just like, cool. I'm going to be at uni for the foreseeable future. You guys are just easier.
Yep.
And just by luck, I managed to get into because you have to go see an endocrinologist. Sometimes, depending on what because you get blood tests to test your levels and like your free testosterone and stuff. And so I had already gotten my blood test. I got a call randomly in my lunch break at uni going, we've just had a cancellation with the endocrinologist. Do you want to jump in now? Like, we have an appointment in an hour. I'm like, yeah, let me just move a few things around with uni and I can be there within the next 40 minutes. And saw the doctors at Equinox there, and I picked up my first androgen tube that night, basically.
Oh, so it's not like a really hard process once the ball's rolling. It's
once
just
the ball is
period.
rolling, it snowballs rather quickly. But
that's all right.
Especially with COVID, the waiting lists are phenomenal at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's not just to get into the gender clinics either. That's to get into the endocrinologists. Because you also have to go see like a counselor and a psychologist. I had to go see a counselor and a psychologist to go, is this just a phase? They had to do like the whole, is this just a phase? Are you sure you want to do this? These are the risks. Yada yada yada, XYZ. Cool. You're sure you want to do this? Here's a letter stating that you want to do this. Here's a letter saying that you understand all of the risks of doing it. Be gone. Go do your thing. Once it's getting in there to start that ball rolling, like it's putting the ball on the track that takes the longest.
If you were to say Crazy World decide, all right, I no longer want to do this, is that something where you just stop taking the shots and you would eventually go back down to your base?
Yeah.
Or
if I stop taking my shots within about 6 months to a year, I'll be having all of the regular periods that come back. I'm not sure if any of the fat redistribution that I've encountered would change. I'm not a specialist in anatomy, but my doctor was just like, if you stop, this is what happens. Everything reverts.
Okay, so would that mean that you're now on these shots forever until they come up with some laser beam that does it for permanent?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not entirely sure because I'm not a professional. I think it's until the area during your life where menopause would traditionally happen. As someone who was assigned female at birth, it would be round about the time around menopause,
and then it would just sort of lock it in a little bit more.
Yeah, because menopause, this is the TMI moment of the show. Menopause is just the estrogen, the slowing down of your body producing estrogen in people who are as female at birth people. And it's so around there, because the estrogen is not producing, you're not producing that estrogen anymore. It's not, you're not having to fight off anything.
Okay. All right. This is all new information to me. I really just don't look into it because it doesn't affect me. I'm very good at shutting myself out and not needing to learn things that I don't need. But yeah, because I know that there are other people in the LARP community that are transitioning, and then sometimes I have questions whether or not they're just playing a different character and maybe it's just a bit of fun for them. I'm not sure. So it's hard for me as an outsider to sort of go, okay, yep, definitely that's what that person is in and out of LARP. But I don't think it's at this stage, I feel like it definitely will increase, but the number of trans people, just a few years ago, I think there was only one, maybe two that I could have gone, okay, yep, there's one, there's another one. It's definitely increasing. Do you feel like that's definitely going to be the trend going forward? It's going to get more and more, or is it sort of going to ease off at some point?
I reckon it's more and more people now that it's such a big open thing, and Google, the wondrous invention that is the internet, you can do a whole heap of your own gender critical research into yourself, and especially with shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, where out of the last, we've had a trans man compete and almost win a season, and we've had quite a few drag queens who were assigned male at birth who have come out as trans, women, and or non-binary and something like that. So now that it's such a big thing in pop culture and in media culture now, it's a lot more easier for people to do their own research and have their own gender journey and realize that maybe I don't fit with this binary that I've been following. Because when I came out, I was having a joke around with my partner at the time, because I've always kind of been the tomboy growing up. Like never really played with dolls. Was always, I want to go play with like trucks, go play in the mud and the sand pits and everything. Yeah. So I was always the tomboy growing up, and I was having a conversation on a walk to school with my partner at the time, and what become like a little in-between joke between us really made me think throughout the day at uni, and what started as a joke kind of made me realize that I wasn't happy at all as a female. So, and like, I've never really seen myself as female, because I was always one of the boys, always presented myself as one of the boys. So it was just kind of oh, this is a thing. Okay, what resources can I get to have a look into this? And it went from there, and 4 to 5 years later, you have me, and you're all stuck with that. Because I am not going anywhere. I have made it everyone's problem. And yeah, so what started out as a joke became something very real very quickly.
I don't know if like, so in that situation, you were in a, I don't know what they call a heterosexual relationship at that time.
I was in a heterosexual relationship at that time. Yeah. I've always kind of expressed myself as a pansexual like the whole time, but was usually always found myself in a heterosexual relationship because honestly, I don't know why I always ended up in heterosexual relationships. I think it was just the opposite gender scared me. Yeah. Like growing up with two sisters, I'm just like, no, I don't want to fuck with that. No, thank you. Like, you'll scare me.
Fair.
And some of my closest friends now are lesbian and who are queer and stuff. I'm just like, if I hadn't transitioned, I'd tap that. I would go whole ham. To like, take me now, step on me please. and yeah, but because that pansexual thing has always been there, I'm okay with whatever kind of relationship, like guy with guy, girl with girl, multiple.
Well, that's a big thing as well that seems to be popping up in LARP, is the poly relationship.
Yeah, the polyamory and stuff. One of my friends at uni came out the other week as non-binary, and I'm just like, you go, you do you. I'm so proud of you. And yeah, definitely
It would be a scary thing to do. Because I remember in year 9, one of my best mates, like I moved to a new school in grade 6, and I had 2 really good friends. I had the weirdest friends group. I had Manny, Danny, Channy, and Chris. But Danny was always with the girls, hair always done, eyebrows plucked, like just obvious, so obvious.
Yeah.
And so I met him in grade 6. In year 9, he pulled us all aside and he's like, guys, I got to tell you something. And he's like, oh, I'm gay. And we're like, yeah, we know.
We know.
But I feel like I've always felt like I robbed him of that big moment. Like he's finally brave enough to tell his mates, and we're just like, yeah, okay, whatever, don't care. Let's go kick a ball. Like it was.
Yeah.
Like now as an adult looking back at that, I'm like, did I make that an awful experience for him? Or did I make it more comfortable by just sort of going, yeah, we know, it's cool, doesn't bother us?
I think like the latter was probably more of what happened, where he was secretly relieved that he didn't have to explain everything. Yeah. Where it was just like, yep, I'm gay. And he was just like, cool, yep, no, we know, we accept. Like, we accept you for you. That's fine. Sadly, it wasn't the same for me. When I came out to my parents, I don't even think they understand or accept it now. And I've been out for about 5 years, and I kind of had one of those horror story coming out things where it's just like, I don't think I'm comfortable like seeing my parents.
Wow.
Because they just either don't want to accept it, or they don't realize how hurtful it can be to be called my dead name and misgendered. And I don't think that's ever really going to change. But at the same time, I'm okay with that. So it's definitely I can understand why they're hurt, because it was definitely they've just lost a daughter, but somehow a son happened, and because I came out late, I was 24 when I came out as trans. So it might have also just been a bit of a culture shock, because I had a kid when I was 18. Like, I barely graduated high school when I had a kid. So I think because I had a kid, that also affects how they see it, because it's just like, I'm always going to have that thing of, I had a kid, I'm always going to be female to them because I gave them a grandson.
Yep.
And so that's kind of always there. But I've also just gotten to the point where I'm okay if I've gone like low contact, because ultimately if it hurts me, I'm not going to go back.
Yeah.
Because I need to start looking after number one, and I need to start looking after my own health and my own mental health. And like, I still talk to my son. He's happy, he's thriving, and that's all that matters. I'm happy. I'm relatively happy. Mental health. I'm happy, I'm thriving. That's all that matters. As long as people realize that I'm happy, I ain't gonna give a shit what people think. Like, I'm here living my life, and if you've got a problem with it, I have 2 fingers for you. And I will, and if you actively try to attack me for it, I will take kneecaps. I need new ones.
Fair.
So it's just basically if you want to, if you don't fuck with me, I won't give a shit. But if you're going to be outwardly like derogatory or mean about it, you're going to poke the wrong bear.
Yeah.
And no one's going to be there to help you.
I think in the nerd LARP community, I think it's now at the bigots and assholes are now more of a minority. Like LARP is so inclusive.
Hate it.
Yeah, LARP is so inclusive.
And the minorities hate it.
Yeah, they definitely don't like the idea that they have to, in their eyes, conform and accept all these people changing and whipping and swapping everywhere, and it just confuses the shit out of them.
Especially if they're trying to go gung-ho with the themes that... I noticed this when I was doing some reading for a LARP group over in the States, where the whole the transgender thing is a huge cultural thing at the moment, because there are laws going through about if you put your child on puberty blockers early, you can get arrested and jailed for like child abuse or something through one of the laws that's just that I haven't looked up into it recently, but I think got either knocked down or like voted against barely. But there was, especially down in like the Bible Belt area of like the lower states, where people were trying to really play up the Inquisition era of history, where it was religion and God-fearing was the big thing for everyone. So it's just kind of like, if you differed, you were going to get hunted no matter what.
Yeah.
And now that that's definitely becoming a minority, it's like, cool, you guys just dug yourself a grave.
Yeah, I think the older generation, they're definitely dying off with those sorts of thoughts. Like, every kid that comes out from this point forward, they're going to be more accepting of pretty much everything. Because obviously you look back to the 40s, and this would just be a complete no-brainer. Everyone would be sort of against it. Like, obviously you had your pockets, but it seems to be like, if you ask nearly any kid, Jimmy Kimmel sort of style does it all the time, but they just don't care. Like, they're like, okay, if you want to do that, yep, you do you, that's fine. And I think that's a big part of that is the slow death of religion. It seems to be less of the younger generation are religious, so these ideas are more accepted. And that doesn't bother me at all. It's like, I'm cool with both.
Yeah.
But
it's like, it all comes down to, they don't have power if you take it away from them. So if you just stop giving a shit. And I know this is hard, because this differs from person to person. But if you don't internalize what bigots and what trash ass people say to you about you, and you don't react and you don't engage, you take away their power.
Yeah.
And I've realized that primary school teachers had it on the fucking money. If you don't pay attention to them, they go away. If like, and it comes down to if you don't do anything, they fuck off. And it's so simple once you realize that, they
definitely harder
don't
as
have
a kid,
power.
I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, if I don't engage, they go away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
and it basically all depends on whether you internalize it, basically. And how that... Because I know it can be hard for some people, especially if they grew up in a heavily religious household, and they do have that religious guilt that comes with things.
Yeah.
But so that sometimes all you really learnt growing up was how to internalize everything and how to let it affect you. But nowadays, people are learning how to research their own shit and how to go good by them, and not by everyone else. Because at the end of the day, you're looking after yourself, not everybody else.
Exactly. Well, we probably should start wrapping up because I think this is going to be a long one.
Yep.
But the things that are sort of coming up, obviously, Swordcraft's on Quest out again. Do you reckon you'll be going to that?
Yep.
Awesome. I sadly won't be able to go, but the goats will be a bigger presence.
I won't be able to go to the next Swordcraft Melbourne Quest. It falls within assessment season for me at uni.
Brutal.
But Exodus has an event coming up around the same time called Dark Winds. We still have our weekly Friday games. I'll be going out to Winterhaven once a month. And I think there's also the charity gala still has tickets open for the LARP charity gala and the trivia night. I think they still have tickets out for the trivia night. I'm not entirely sure. But I've been focusing on uni work mainly, and because I've just started my honors, so it's a whole heap of thesis writing and being smarter than I look, or making people believe I'm smarter than I look. So
LARPing as a smart person.
Yeah, LARPing as a smart person. That's what I'm doing, and I'm really bad at that roleplay. I'm terrible at being a smart person. But yeah, so.
Well, is there anything that you want to sort of put out there before we hit the shut up button?
No, I think we've covered it all. Just live your own life. You really don't have to listen to anyone about what matters to you.
Except for Jesus.
Except for Jesus.
Listen to Jesus.
Jesus or the pastor demons.
I agree.
We must all pay our tithes to the noodly appendage.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and giving me the rundown, because again, I don't know a lot about this sort of stuff, so it's been an absolute pleasure to sort of hear your experience.
And it's been wonderful to hang out with you tonight.
We'll definitely do it again. I want to start doing more guest appearances on the podcast. I'll get Timmy on probably next, or my brother. I say it every episode that I'm going to get someone on, but it's so hard to schedule everyone. But yeah, this is obviously for Pride Month. And yeah, it was educational for me, the dirty straight white man. But yeah, so thanks so much for coming on, being open and honest, and sharing your experience. Because I know sometimes it's really hard, and I know we touched on some personal stuff there, which yeah, I got to say thank you for just taking the time out to have a chat.
No problem, my pleasure.
All right, well, I'll shut the button up now, but I'll catch everyone in the next one. The next one, I'll have either Barack Obama or just a useless person from Melbourne on. Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye, guys.
Have a good one.